Well, let me say this, that the mission statement of our company, I love the mission statement of our company. It's having fun, improving lives. And life's too short. On Monday morning, if you're going to work and you're not looking forward to it, you're going to the wrong place.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Ignition Path podcast. My name is Kyle Goodknight, and your host today. Before we get too far into the show and introduce you to our amazing guest who's done some amazing things with changing lives left and right, and he'll explain all of that, I just want to make sure that you subscribe, like, and share. If something resonates with you during this podcast and you want to share it with friends, please don't hesitate to hit that share button and send that to that person. So once again, my guest today is John Hewitt of Loyalty Brands. This man has an amazing story, and I cannot wait for him to tell you all about it. It's very inspiring, and for any young entrepreneur or even middle ground entrepreneur, he's got some great insights that he's going to share with us today. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kyle. My pleasure.
Yeah. So real quick, just go ahead and just start off, just give us, Ignition Path is all about the path of entrepreneurs and how they got there. So just go ahead and share with the audience, how you became an entrepreneur, why you became an entrepreneur, a little bit about the path you became, and then we'll dive deeper into what you're doing now and what's going on.
Sure. I have to go back 55 years. Long before most of you were born.
I'm 52, so that even eclipses me. So yeah. So 1970, right? So 1970.
Right. I took an H&R Block course in 1969.
Okay. All right.
But in January, I started working for H&R Block. So I've finished 55 tax seasons. So I was at the University of Buffalo, and my dad had been a frustrated entrepreneur his whole life. And he had children very young. I was born when he was a freshman at Michigan State. By the time he got out of Michigan State, he had 3 children, and then he had a 4th one right after that. So okay. He never could, and we grew up poor, so he never had the chance to step out and be an entrepreneur, but he always wanted to be. So when he was a CFO of a public company, he had some money, the kids were mostly grown, and he reached out to H&R Block and said, well, I was at University of Buffalo, and said, my son and I would like to buy a franchise in Hamburg, New York, a suburb of Buffalo where I grew up. And they said, well, as a matter of fact, we're going to put a company store there. Why don't you have your son take our course and see if he would like to work for us? So I took the course and I loved it. And long story short, 12 years later, I was managing 250 H&R Blocks. I was one of the top 50 people at the company, and a company with 9,000 locations, Fortune 500 company. And he still was CFO of a public company. He roped me into being an entrepreneur. He tore me out of my job, which I loved, and said, we're going to computerize taxes. He had bought one of the first Apple computers by mail, and he liked it better than the mainframe that was running his public company. So in 1981, we both quit our jobs and built the first tax software for an Apple computer. So I was 32 years old, and I started as an entrepreneur and been doing it ever since. And no one wanted it, way ahead of its time. People didn't understand computers, and got blessed and found a company in Virginia Beach called Mel Jackson Tax Service. We put a group of entrepreneurs together, and we bought Mel Jackson Tax Service, and H&R Block had 9,000 offices, and we had 6, and we set a big, hairy, audacious goal to have 9,001 offices. So I needed to open 8,995 offices. Well, Jackson Hewitt only got to 6,000. It did get to be the total investment to start in August of 1982 was $129,000. And we sold it 15 years later for $483 million. And now it's become $1 billion company with 6,000 locations. So that was my first major success, was making Jackson Hewitt a public company worth almost $500 million.
Yeah, and that's Jackson Hewitt is that everybody knows that name in taxes, so it's really cool to meet a guy that was on the forefront of computerizing the taxes. Now, I can send my taxes to my CPA, and I normally still like to meet him in person. I like him, so I like to meet him in person and go over, because I have several different businesses that I run, and I just like to be able to be there in front of him and say, hey, this, and this, and what about this? And, but he's like, you can like email me all this and I can just get it done for you. And I'm like, I know, I still want to have a little bit of the old way, like I'm going to do my taxes, and it makes me, I don't know, for whatever reason, it makes me feel like I've accomplished something. But it's so great now to know that my son does that. He's just one little form, sends it off to him, and he does it over email and sends him back his deposit, acknowledgement or whatever he may have to owe to the state, and it's done, and it's like, and it's literally when I go into his office, he looks at some of my stuff, plugs it in, and because of what he did the year before, that's in the system, and then whatever, and I'm not sure what software he's using, but it's one of those things where, yeah, it's just amazing that now we are at the point of doing our taxes in the middle of in the middle of a 10-minute conversation. So with that being said, tell us a little bit about, you mentioned, are you still in the tax business, or have you kind of grown from there or added things? Go ahead and describe what else you've started.
Had many ventures. I sold it in 97, and I had a 3-year non-compete, but it didn't cover Canada because Jackson Hewitt's never gone to Canada. And having grown up in Buffalo, I knew the Canadian tax system. So I opened my second public company and a second success in Canada in 1998. And within 3 years, I became a top 100 retail chain. My non-compete ended in 2000 in the United States, came back to the United States, and I had to compete with my own name, my own software, my own people, my own system. And yet, not only do we grow faster than Jackson Hewitt, we grew faster than them and H&R Block combined. We opened 4,000 offices in 12 years, top 10 fastest growing franchisor ever. Again, a public company that was worth $500 million. Again, I sold. And my final venture now is called Loyalty Brands. And we have 8 different franchise systems now, not just one. I had one with Jackson Hewitt, one with Liberty. Now I have 8 different in 3 different industries. One is tax and accounting, and secondly is construction, led by my roofing company, and thirdly is the fastest growing. It's not only the fastest growing my brand, it's one of the top 25 fastest growing of the 4,000 franchisees and the franchisors in the United States, and that is Zoom and Groom and mobile grooming.
Yeah, I know it well. So I don't know what thing you've bought recently in your vicariously, because I'm a Zoom and Grooming customer, something in your house that money that came in from your franchisee has now bought you something. So I'm an actual consumer of your product. So that's fantastic. So
it's a nice coincidence. And within 5 years, we'll be a household name. We'll have 3,000 vans across the country.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. Pet industry is way more exciting than tax industry.
Yeah, but people love their pets. They do anything for them. I've got 4 doodles. I used to have 5 doodles, and it was one of those things where it was just, we had a local groomer just kind of up the street from us, and through some issues that she had with consistency of groomers, she ended up having to close down. And then we tried another groomer that we had gotten really good reviews from, and was a friend of a friend. That was probably about 20 minutes away. I'd have to load up 5 dogs in a van and take them all the way over there. And we did that twice, and we're like, man, we got to find another solution. And I don't know, I think my wife did some research and found Zoom and Grooming, and then we met with them and end up having their groomers come out and groom our dogs several times. And now we've referred them to other people in the neighborhood with doodles, because they do such a great job. And doodles are such a big, there's so many different doodles now that it's not as bad as it used to be, where people didn't know how to groom a doodle. I think every groomer now, they'll tell you the majority of their dogs are doodles. Well, because they're the ones that have to, a Labrador retriever doesn't need to be groomed. He needs to be washed and combed, but he doesn't truly need to be groomed. Maybe trimmed here and there, but not a full groom like a human hair of like our hair grows about, the doodle's hair grows about the same speed as we do. So it's a fantastic service. I'm so glad it's out there. It saves us a lot of time, a lot of headache, a lot of, danger of traveling across the town on a freeway with my dogs in the back. That, how do you secure five 45 to 100-pound dogs, So I appreciate the service, and I'm glad they came to town. And like I said, Josh is amazing. Him and I have had some great conversations, and he's even when one of our dogs passed, he even sent us a sympathy flower arrangement and stuff. So that really it made my wife, made my daughter, made me get choked up that someone cared that much, and we've never had that before in a groomer. So we appreciate the services.
Yeah, that's I just learned it on this call, and that's amazing. It's one of my favorite authors, Stan Phelps, said that when you arrive at a party or a meeting, and let's say it's at 10 o'clock, and no one arrives exactly at time. I mean, they're either a little late or they're either early or late. Almost no one arrives exactly at 10 o'clock. He said in the same manner with customers, you almost never meet a customer's expectations. You either exceed them or fail to meet them. And so that's goal,
a great point.
Our goal,
that's a nugget.
The way we measure our success is the percentage of customers that we exceed their expectations. And that's just something that exceeds customers' expectations.
Right. Absolutely. 100%. And I come from that. I come from a sales background myself. I was in medical sales for years, and I got introduced to a company called Send Out Cards, and it was a multi-level marketing company. And yes, I did try to do the multi-level marketing part of it, but I actually was a consumer, and every single time I got done meeting with a client, I would send them a card. A lot of times it was a selfie of me and them, or a picture of their hospital, or a picture of the product, and a little bit about the conversation. And I used to get phone calls. I used to get thank you calls for my thank you cards, because it's just the next step of what to do, and that's so important. And, when I first got on with you before we started recording, I asked you, hey, what do you want to call this episode? And you said improving lives. That's your mantra. That's your mission. That's what you are about. And this little part of the conversation, it proves that what you do is improving lives, because we were very, especially my daughter, because it was my daughter's dog, is 15 years old, very abruptly in a very short period of time during that day that everything happened. We were all pretty devastated, even though we knew he was nearing the end, but we just didn't know he'd go out the way he did. And to have a sympathy card come in, or a sympathy, flower arrangement come in, it definitely improved, and it helped the healing process. So it is true, what you're doing is improving lives, because it did improve us. That it improved. It didn't make us, jump for joy. I mean, we were happy that we got a thought from us, but it was definitely something that was very heartfelt and warm, and we appreciate it. So tell Josh that we thank him again. I thanked him the day that I talked to him too, by the way. So,
well, as I said, he's in Virginia Beach today. He's one of our trainers now. He flies in to help with the training, and we use franchisees to train the new franchisees. And I look forward to holding him up in front of the class and congratulate him on his great exceeding customers' expectations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Totally deserved. So when it comes to Zoom and Groomin' and the other two tax services, is there anything else that you're vying for, or you're trying to get into now? Like what's the newest, latest and greatest inside of John Hewitt's head?
Actually, the newest is, we've been doing this for about less than 2 years, is roofing company. So we're into construction and primarily roofing. And I just love that industry, because your roofs have to be changed about every 15 years. And if there's a windstorm or hail, or it can be damaged. And the beauty of it is, over half the time, the insurance companies pay for the new roof. So that's an easy sale when you go to a consumer and say, for your $500 deductible, because of that wind there, and we take pictures or hail damage, you can get a whole new roof for your $500 deductible.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly how I got my roof. My roof was damaged by hail, and I had a friend of mine in my neighborhood that that went from the mortgage industry into selling roofs, and has a great business and local, and you know, he does a fantastic job, him and his sub crew, that he has the same sub crew. It's not a different crew every time. I think he has 2 or 3 different sub crews now because he's big enough, but it's a great industry. I actually helped him. I come from a construction background. As soon as I was old enough to swing a hammer, I was with my dad on job sites, and anyway, anything from, you know, doing foundation to putting on roofs, you know, from digging in the ground to put an extension on a house or putting the roof on. I've done it all, right? I don't like electricity. I can do it, but I don't like it. I don't want to have that fear of getting shocked. I don't like that feeling. Plumbing's not so bad. You just get things wet, you know, you just dry it out. But electricity can actually hurt you. But yeah, so that's great that second or that fourth business now is going strong for you. And it's a great industry. I mean, and everybody needs roofs, and like you said, like that. So when it comes to talking to other entrepreneurs that may be listening to this podcast, what is a couple of pieces of advice? Just give us you already gave us one nugget. I love that story about the you know, no one arrives right at time, so you don't always just meet it. You either exceed it or you fall short. And unfortunately, a lot of companies fall short. We know that's why, you know, you get those keyboard cowboys that complain about one mistake, and then, you know, but they didn't tell about all the good things that company did prior. But when it comes to some more advice like that, I call that a little nugget. And if you go back and listen to the shows, I'm like, oh, that's a nugget. I'm eventually going to put together like a social media post that shows all the nuggets from all my guests or something, because everybody always drops something really special that teaches me, that teaches our listeners. So what are a couple more things that you would talk to or tell an entrepreneur that may be struggling or just starting out? Like what is some advice when it comes to that?
Well, certainly it starts with having differentiators in one of our tax territories that's competing with H&R Block, for example. There's about 35,000 people, and there's about 3,500 businesses. So, and some of them are in your same industry. So you have to have differentiators. If David had gone onto the field with Goliath with the same armor, same shield, same sword, there would not be a David and Goliath story. He'd be the 189th guy killed by Goliath. So you have to have differentiators that you do different. And there's 30 in that territory that I described. There's 3,500 businesses, maybe 10 competitors, same industry, that are trying to get the customer's attention. So you can't do what everyone else is doing. If you do, you're going to get beat up by the largest competitor. Whoever has the most money is going to win. So we have things that we do different than anyone else. So, for example, we have a costume character, and I invented that to use at Liberty Tax because it was so easy. Having a person, and we had both males and females dance as lady or in the street in a Lady Liberty costume with and dancing. And they're not just standing there; they're the best.
They're getting it on, yeah.
right, dancing in the street. And so, in Columbus, Ohio, where you are, how many companies with characters are dancing in the street? One?
Not many.
You might see it. You might see it.
There's a pet store. There's a pet store that has a person standing out with a sign, and they flip it and dance and point towards going to look at the puppies. But they're not in character. You know, they're just them out there. But they're doing the same thing. But that's a pet store. It's a different industry. So
So in the whole Columbus market, there's maybe 50,000 businesses, and so you can count on one hand or less how many have a character out there. And most people on the way to work drive past many locations, many businesses. And I asked them, you know, they drive by hundreds of businesses. How many can you name? Maybe 18 or 20 or 25. But if you saw a waiver, and we use at ATAX, we use a eagle. If you saw an eagle outside your office and dancing in the street from January to April, would that be one of the businesses that you remember? Yes.
Right.
So you have to do things different. And we have a handful of things that in each of our businesses we do different. And at Zoomin, our van is like a beautiful
Billboard,
moving
yeah.
billboard.
It
So
is.
it
It is.
don't even need a character because our van is so beautiful that it's deep blue and it catches attention. A lot of times we're sitting in a yard or in a driveway doing grooming for the local person, and people will come up to the van and say, can I use your services? And people will call. They see it driving down the street. So you have to do things different.
Exactly. Well, that's great. That's great advice. Yeah, for sure. That's something that I think is great advice for anybody, no matter what business is. Find what that differentiator is and own it and try it. And if it doesn't work, try another one. Don't, fail forward. Don't fail backwards. If it's successful, then that's great. If it's not successful, try another one. So that's one thing that I know that over the past, even this last year, because before I got into the Ignition Path podcast and interviewing entrepreneurs and potential entrepreneurs, I was building a first responder mental health course, and it just didn't go anywhere. Not too many first responders are saying, hey, I want to learn more about mental health. And unfortunately, they're not. They need to. We need to normalize it because that's what's harming us as a whole. And I say us because I am a first responder myself, but it's one of those things where, unfortunately, they're not breaking down the door. So the differentiator was I started a podcast about mental health, and that actually spun actual traction that started to get people to want to come onto my podcast, talk about their mental health, talk about their procedures, talk about their modalities, because there's not just one smoking gun when it comes to mental health. There's a lot of different options out there for success to manage it. And so my differentiator was to start a podcast and to sink my teeth into the podcast instead of trying to get people to come in to a webinar or to a class. And now I'm being asked to go teach that class and at schools, all because of podcasting. It introduced me to so many different avenues, and it took a little bit of a hit. It took like a month. I was like, man, am I doing the right thing? Why is this obstacle in front of me? And then I'm like, just keep on plugging away. It didn't work the first time, just start this second thought process, and boom, now we're in the middle of, I've got some things that's cooking in the fire that are going to be very big in that area, probably come the first of the year. So I'm excited about it, but it's all because of podcasting, and that was my differentiator for that business. So yeah, so that's great advice. But anything else that you want to talk about today that you want to share with the audience about anything new or anything that you want to promote? I have people on not only to hear their story, but also to let people know how to get a hold of you, or what if they listen to this and they think that you can help them. I want to make sure they know how to get a hold of you and whatnot. If anybody wants to start a dog grooming business, John's the guy. It's a roofing business, John's the guy. Tax business, so.
Well, let me say this, that the mission statement of our company, I love the mission statement of our company. It's having fun, improving lives. And life's too short. On Monday morning, if you're going to work and you're not looking forward to it, you're going to the wrong place. It's not, thank God it's Friday. It should be, thank God it's Monday. And in improving lives, there's nothing more rewarding or enjoyable than improving lives. I saw Denzel Washington, the great actor. He did a commencement speech, and I listened. It was on Facebook. So I listened to it, and he ended it. He surprised me for a second. He said, you know who the most selfish people on the earth are? He said, it's people that help others. And I said, what? And he said, because they're so happy. It makes them so happy. And
makes sense.
And that's true. There's nothing more rewarding. When I was a kid, when I was in high school, somehow I knew I would get wealthy. We grow up poor, but I knew we were going to get rich. I was going to get rich, and I thought I'd just make a few $1 million. I was immature and said, I'll make a few $1 million and retire. But along the way, I learned, what would I do? I've changed tens of thousands of people's lives. I brought in 5,200 franchisees, and they had hundreds of thousands of employees. And I've had thousands of employees too. So in all my companies. So there's nothing more rewarding than changing lives and improving lives. And so I would say that giving back is a requirement of massive success. And so I do a webinar every week on, and I mentor businesses of all kinds that I have no association with. You can call me up, and I have sessions. On one session was someone asked me about how do you build a great company. I built $1 billion company. There's only 9,000 people in the United States that have done that. I built 2 of the top 100 chains in this country, retail chains. Only one person's done that. And said, how do you do that? And I finally realized there isn't just one thing. And I came up with my top 10 things if you want to grow an exponential business. And those webinars are recorded and they're on our website. And you can listen to those webinars. So I would say, if you want advice on how to build a business, you can listen to my past webinars. You can get on the webinar and ask me questions. And my book is free. If you get onto loyaltybrands.com, there's a link. You can order a free copy of my best-selling book. And it's called simply I Compete. I Live to Compete. The name of the book is Little I, capital C, Compete. And it's free to your listeners if they'll go on to loyaltybrands.com. There's a
Awesome. Fantastic. Yeah, I will make sure that link is, if that's the only link, we'll touch base afterwards and get all that stuff and put into the show notes so they have access to that. And that's it's always nice when someone comes on my show and has something free to give away. So for people to actually, get inside the head of these great people that I have come on my show. So, well, I want to wrap things up for now. I appreciate you coming on, John. I appreciate everything that you've been doing for all the different organizations and people out there. Like I said, I've been directly impacted by your leadership with your franchisees, and I think it's just a great thing that you have. I love your mission statement. Being a first responder myself, it is embedded in me to serve, but that's the only thing I know how to do is serve people. And that's why I started this podcast too, to serve the entrepreneur, because I've always been an entrepreneur ever since I was old enough to push the lawnmower, and I just wanted to give back to the entrepreneur world, and also teach people the things that I've learned through entrepreneurship and things that I do with my businesses. So appreciate you coming on. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share. If that's it, John, we'll say goodbye for now, and we'll talk again sometime for sure. And don't forget to get his information down in the show notes so you can get that book and you can go to his webinar. I'll probably find where do they find your webinar? Is that on the same web page?
Exactly. It's on loyaltybrands.com.
Okay. All right. So we'll have all that stuff in the show notes and whatnot. So, all right, John, thanks so much. Talk to you later.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you for listening to Ignition Path, fueling the entrepreneurial fire.